this European morning commute time zone edition as we do, out of respect for all of my very punctual European friends and Japanese friends, as Cheryl just said. And great to be back with everybody. And how this works is we got a bunch of smart folks on stage, including yourself. All you got to do is raise your hand. We try and get everybody up on stage to share their headlines. Welcome back, Mabwana and Jonathan. And let's see how this all unfolds each day. It's always unique every time, and there's always new headlines to jump into. Today's no exception. One notable caveat: I am trying to do today without a mouse. So if things seem a little off, that might be part of it. So please be patient with me if things don't run as smoothly as usual. But and I need people are wondering, why the hell do you need a mouse? Because Clubhouse is a mobile app, but I'm using Club Deck, which is an app that runs on a laptop, whether Mac or Windows. And if you're a moderator, it's a game changer. So and it's fun to use, even if you want to use your phone for other things and you have a laptop running and you want to give it a try. It's free. It's got all kinds of amazing features. I can't speak highly enough about it. And there's no cost, at least for now. And for those, and it does make your microphone sound better if you're conscious about the quality of your audio if you're doing something. And it really makes it kind of ideal as a tool for if you're making a podcast out of your Clubhouse room, as some people are starting to do. But let's jump into it. We'll pause all of the housekeeping for another 30 minutes while people pile in, as they normally do. So let's jump right into some headlines. Would anyone like to go first? Everyone's just waking up. Okay, I'll go first. Cheryl, you got one?
A small news from Japan. Yes, it's very good news for us living in Japan. I think Tyler will understand. The Japanese government finally is going to ban form stamping, hanko.
Oh, yeah. People don't know what this is unless you've lived in Japan. You have no idea what this means. In Japan, in most of the world, people sign documents with their signature. In Japan, they use a very special little wooden stamp that everybody carries around in a little special pouch, and that is your official signature. And the reason it's unique is because it's very nearly impossible to replicate, because they're hand carved. And when you lose yours, you have to go to an official hanko creator who hand carves you your special stamp, and then it gets registered with the government, and then it's your official stamp. So it's almost like being a royalty. You have your own little official stamp that you stamp on every document to make them official. And so people have wondered now for many years, when is Japan going to move beyond that into something else, digital or etc.? It's kind of a charming, antiquated thing at this point. I think,
but there's an irony, because you have an official stamp that you have to keep it, because it is actually for very official documents like bank.
Right.
And if you sell properties, you need the official hanko. But most of the time, most people actually just use another one, which is a temporary, not temporary, but the one that's not official, but they use it, like, for example, when they go to sign most documents, other than all those very official important ones. And also, when you receive posts from the delivery man, you have to hanko as well. But this unofficial stamp, right, can actually be bought in 100 yen shop at 100 yen,
which is about $10. Yeah.
$1.
Yeah. Well, sorry, $1, 100 yen. Yep.
That's funny, yeah. But anyhow, we are probably very soon going to move on from that. That is a very good news for us living in Japan.
I love the hanko. It's like, it's part of how Japanese has the old and the new. That's part of the real charm of Japan, is it's just there's history all over the place in this incredibly modern metropolis, and then you stumble upon these super old temples in the middle of bustling Tokyo, and the stark juxtaposition and contrast of really old and really new living side by side in harmony. To me, that's one of the things I really love about Tokyo. And the hanko fits right into that. Is you have somebody with a smartphone in one hand and a hanko in the other. It's like and then you're in a Japanese room, what they call a washitsu, where you have tatami mats, but you have a 75-inch, LCD, OLED screen with a tatami mat room. Just the contrast of those things is truly remarkable. How they are able to integrate both of those in a way that seems natural in a paradoxical way. So thank you for that headline, Cheryl. One innovation that we've brilliantly stumbled upon in the past 24 hours that I want to encourage everyone to participate in. We have a new way of sharing and discovering the tech headlines together as a group. And how this works, we tried it in the last time session, which you can see by clicking on the title of this room. You'll notice we meet twice a day. You'll see the schedule. And in the last session, we tried something new, and I have to say it's fantastic. And how it works is, instead of sending headlines to me via DMs on Twitter, what you do is, on Twitter, you tweet a headline that you think is fantastic. And if you want us to see it, simply CC, include the Twitter account TNATW as part of your tweet, Tech News Around the World. And if you go to the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, you'll see that I'm retweeting the most interesting articles that people are tagging with the TNATW, and that's what we're sharing here. So this has now become a second screen activity for people to follow along with, because when we talk about a headline here in the room, almost always now there's a direct article that at the simultaneously being shared on Twitter about that topic. And we have to recognize Poppy as really pioneering this innovation for us. And but you'll see now other people are jumping in as well and sharing articles, and I'm retweeting them, and then we discuss them, and you can click on them and deep dive into the articles and read them for yourself, because that's what we try and be, the most informed audience, not just in Clubhouse, but by golly, pretty much anywhere. So, and to that point, Cal, would you please share with the class today the fantastic DM that we got? You sent me
From
a few
Ramin.
moments ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me just pull it up 1 second.
This is fantastic.
Just keep going. Let me pull it. Yeah, let me just pull it up.
Just I have to say, this is the one of those moments of doing Tech News Around the World. We've been doing it for several weeks, and this is one of these moments I will not forget. So
right. So Ramin, if you could raise your hand and come up, because you're a shy guy, I know, and you always send me amazing insight and DMs, etc. And you're just always in the background, and you just so it says morning Cal. So this related to a discussion we had on. So I'll just read it out. Morning Cal. Not sure if this is news, but it's interesting tech news angle. Tyler mentioned an HBR paper on Bitcoin and power consumption during one of the morning chats.
Harvard Business Review, no less. That's kind of important for those who don't know what HBR is. Harvard Business Review. We're known for not screwing up, by the way.
I read the paper and noted a slight error and corresponded with the author, who apologized and suggested meaning was lost during the editorial process. I think somehow the Tech News Around the World should take the credit for this without mentioning names, right? So we haven't mentioned names or anything, but other than, and he sent me the kind of dialogue that effectively he's had. But the point is, with the editor,
the author of the article, showed his kind of an acknowledgement that there was an error, which he blamed the editor for. Right? But
we give him credit. But what I want to say about Ramin is, for 5 weeks I've been trying to pull him up, right? Every time, and he comes on stage.
I do too. Right? I'm constantly sending him invites to come on stage, and he never accepts.
And he always says I'm okay, I'm listening, I'm okay. It's just the humility, the hubris, not the hubris, the humility, and just the understanding that you're kind of a servant to something bigger, which is kind of like the servant leadership. And we all see amazing stuff that happens. It happens because behind the scenes people are leaders, right? And he's a leader. So Ramit, it's credit to you, and thanks for just learning and being part of the game, but also just I'm inspired by you. Thank you.
Tyler.
Yeah.
I realize that Tomoko, Japanese, is on the stage. Maybe she can comment on the Hanko thing because it's in their culture for so
Cheryl,
long.
can we just
Yeah,
like
later,
least,
no problem.
just sometimes you have to land a compliment to somebody. Is that
Yeah.
all right, Cheryl? And then we can move to another headline.
Yeah.
It's just a couple of seconds of just landing that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Cheryl. Just wanted to
Thank
just do
you.
that.
The timing. So I've got a bunch of, since our last gathering, a bunch of people. This is the beauty of this new Twitter headline sharing format, which, by the way, people in the room are already, like Cigar just shared a tweet, did it exactly right. So just to illustrate this new format, which is so fantastic. So someone in the audience named Cigar Soda just shared a tweet, and he CC'd TNATW, so I see it. I get a notification, and the tweet said, and I'm going to retweet it now so everybody can see it. Boom, one click. Now everyone following the Twitter account can see Cigar's headline that he's sharing with the room. And so it says, Ericsson report 40 million Indians could adopt 5G in the next year, in the first year, because we have a lot of fantastic, brilliant Indian folks who join us live each day, and there was an article recently that 5G hasn't even officially started in India; they're just starting now, and to unpack the cultural context of this, and there's much more to this than even Cigar's headline from the Indian Express. The headline is Ericsson report 40 million Indians could adopt 5G in first year. And here's what's really interesting about this. And the Swedes in the audience know this because Ericsson, who's the author of the report, is from Stockholm. Now, the two biggest companies in 5G in the world are Ericsson and Huawei. And India made a decision to not use Huawei, which is not a surprise if you follow the room every day. And so that means they're going with Ericsson. And so Ericsson's report that just came out just now, that 40 million Indians will adopt 5G in the first year, is basically Ericsson saying, hey, we are now got a green light and the checkered flag to go full speed into India, and we're going to turn on 40 million folks with 5G in the first year. And so, Sagar, thank you for finding and sharing that headline and tagging TNATW, Tech News Around the World Twitter account. And I've retweeted your article so everyone can see it from the Twitter account who follows the Tech News Around the World Twitter account at TNATW. And people are already liking it, and hopefully they'll reshare it as well if they find it interesting. And that's how we do it. So if you find an article like Sagir did, simply CC the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, TNATW, just like he did. And I will retweet it to share it with the group if it's relevant to the conversation here, which most of them are, thankfully. And the beautiful part is people are sending in these articles even between our live sessions. So I've got a bunch to catch up on since the last session. So here's some of my favorites that people have shared since our last gathering, 12 hours ago. So here's a few that we talked about. Researchers have developed road chargers for EVs from Jalopnik, and Poppy sent this in, so I'm going to retweet it. And also Willie from Germany sent this in as well. Researchers have developed a way to wirelessly charge vehicles. One of the barriers to EVs right now is the hassle of charging, which is true. And in fact, Stella from Switzerland/Russia was on stage here 48 hours ago saying that one of the barriers of EVs is the reliability of gas stations, and it takes 3 minutes to charge and you're done. And that is one of the benefits of gas, except then Dave made a brilliant counterpoint, which is, you know what? I don't even go to the gas stations anymore. I charge my car at home. So it's actually, the gas station isn't a benefit, it's a hindrance, because I just charge it at home and I don't need the gas stations anymore, which is a kind of a brilliant counterpoint if you think about it. So I just shared Poppy's article about that from Jalopnik, and you can do the deep dive on that article. There was another one from Poppy about Wall Street executive quits after reportedly making a Dogecoin fortune. A Goldman Sachs senior executive has quit the investment bank after cashing in and making millions on Dogecoin, the cryptocurrency that Elon Musk was hyping. And now somebody has made enough to quit their job as an executive at Goldman Sachs, to give you some context as to how fast Dogecoin has grown over the past couple of months or so. Perhaps one of the fastest rising on a percentage basis because it was starting from zero, basically. And the whole weird element to this, of course, is that it was intended as a bit of a joke, and some people even take that comment as an insult. People have in the crypto space get Dogecoin. Yeah, it's a very serious thing for some folks. Some people are making incredible money on it, clearly, as this Goldman Sachs senior manager did, and now he's resigning. I would love to know how much he made from it. Maybe that will come forward in days to come. Yeah.
But Tyler, that's so ridiculous. What are they trying to show and demonstrate to the young generation?
Who
No
do you mean?
values, no fundamentals,
who, Cheryl?
Trying to make quick money?
Wait, Cheryl. What this is when you say what are they? When you say they, do you mean the journalist? Do you mean the creator of Dogecoin? Do you mean the investor at Goldman Sachs? Who's they?
The trader.
The trader. What is he trying to show? He's trying to show his friends at work that he is smarter than they are.
You think that's smart?
What everyone at Goldman, but that's what everyone at Goldman does, Cheryl, right?
That's the game.
Everyone competes at Goldman. That's the game, right? And so it's just it's just Goldman.
Because here's why. Because Goldman generally, conventionally would say, okay, maybe we accept Bitcoin. Some do, some don't. But we sure as hell don't accept Dogecoin, because that's a cartoon fantasy land. And this guy is trying to say, oh, yeah, you guys think you're so smart? I just made so much off of it that I'm retiring. See y'all later. Come visit me on my island. So he's trying to show that actually he knew more than his bosses did, who probably internally, almost certainly, were speaking negatively about Dogecoin and why Goldman Sachs can't touch Dogecoin. There's no way Goldman Sachs can touch Dogecoin. And he's saying, not only am I touching it, I'm swimming in it. And I'm retiring on it. Ha ha, you guys were wrong. I was right. F y'all later. Chip, 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 as he leaving his helicopter off the roof of Goldman Sachs.
What a comedy.
Exactly.
What a comedy.
No, but Cheryl, that's been going on for years, like decades. That's how banking works.
That's the game. That's the game. He, it's that moment on the Monopoly game where you put the 4 houses on Boardwalk and Park Place, and you're like, okay, everybody, when you land here, you got to pay me. Oh, let me see. Oh, $2,000 rent every time you land on Boardwalk now. That moment of the game where somebody gets really cocky and the other people in the playing the Monopoly game are like, yeah, screw this asshole. Right.
And when you look at the psychology of it, it's actually the winning that is the disproportionate amount of the satisfaction for those guys. I mean, just the perspective, right? Because it could be X million, Y million, but it's the winning. Like it's the, I'm shaking the dust off my feet, out of here, Goldman. I'm going on to better things. The guy in his head believes he's won, and that's it.
Yeah. Let's hope he thoroughly cashed out before hopefully he's not still holding it all while he's in the helicopter and 3 days later it crashes, from a very high to very low. He can hopefully he's thoroughly exited and holding his position in some other safer assets, knowing how volatile, Dogecoin could be. So, yeah.
Dan is here. We can do the Elon Musk Bitcoin news now.
Yeah, easy come, easy go with the Dogecoin. You live and die by the Doge. You know what I mean? So Apple severs. I have another one that Poppy sent here. Apple severs ties with recently hired former Facebook employee. And just diving into this one a little bit, because this is, by the way, I'm noticing something that has not been publicly stated, and I want to publicly state it, which is there has been historically a unspoken but well understood secret handshake amongst the big tech companies in Silicon Valley, namely, and this was rumored, although the insiders really know what happened, a secret handshake deal between Apple and Google, and then they looped in Facebook and Amazon, and I'm forgetting one other, that they would not poach each other's talent, so that they could maintain their power position. They could acquire all the small startups, but if they started poaching each other's talent, it becomes a talent war, and then the salaries become ridiculous. I mean, the salaries are already pretty remarkably good amongst these big tech companies for the most part, But my God, if they start really competing in an open labor market, these people will be making millions and millions a year each, right? And that would really affect their bottom lines. And they know it because they employ tens of thousands of people each. And if each of them is making an extra $1 million a year, if they're able to poach each other's talent, it would become unmanageable. And that's why they had this secret alliance of not poaching each other's talent. Anyway, I have reason to suspect that that has now gone out the window. And it's really most notable between Apple and Facebook at the moment as a result of Apple removing sort of the tracking in their devices with the newest version of Apple's 14.5 iOS. That is sort of a blow to Facebook and their ability to, in their ad network, which depends on sort of the trackability of the devices, the IMEI numbers. And as a result now, there are now a surprising number of employees moving between Apple and Facebook in a way that is sort of unprecedented, in the traditional era. And I imagine this could have cascading domino effects. I wonder if it will stay between Apple and Facebook, which clearly don't like each other anymore. As Apple, there's also other headlines that confirm that Apple is ramping up their ad marketplace ambitions to compete with Google and Facebook. Google and Facebook are really the two big digital ad networks, which have kind of taken over newspapers and TVs and all the traditional advertising, which people, believe it or not, people used to advertise on this thing called TV. If I don't know if you guys remember this thing, but it plays shows once a week that you would wait a week to watch. And now, we don't do that anymore. But us old folks remember these things. And people used to have advertisements on this thing called TV. And people used to watch these advertisements because they didn't have a choice. But these things, Facebook and Google came along. And due to their digital tracking, became far better ways to do advertising and buy TV and buy newspapers, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, Facebook and Google are the two big ad networks. Apple is clearly making moves to become an ad network. And we covered that yesterday. We'll continue to cover it because that's an ongoing story. They are poaching talent from Facebook. The people who do the ad network in Facebook are now being recruited over to Apple, kind of secretly. More to come, mark my words. And simultaneously, Facebook is also taking some folks from Apple. And again, this is breaking a very strong unspoken alliance that they've had in place since the Steve Jobs era. And Steve Jobs really was the creator of this alliance, according to Silicon Valley lore. So anyway, this article that I just retweeted, it says Apple has severed ties with a recent hire. And we reported on this like 48 hours ago. So 48 hours ago, there was a headline that Apple had a recent hire from Facebook named Antonio Garcia Martinez. And now the headline is 48 hours later, Apple has severed ties with the recent Facebook hire, Antonio Garcia Martinez, a former Facebook employee. Axio has learned following an uproar from employees upset over Garcia Martinez's past writings demeaning women and others. So this is how interesting is this? So Apple poached this guy, Antonio Garcia Martinez, from Facebook. He joins Apple. He's not even been there 48 hours. And according to the source, he's now being shown the door because the current Apple team members are in an uproar. That's their word. An uproar from employees upset over this new employee's past writings, which they feel are demeaning to women and others. Further into the article, employees had circulated a petition on Wednesday calling for Apple to explain its hiring of Garcia Martinez. While petitions aren't uncommon at Google and other companies, it is rare for Apple employees to organize publicly on any issue, let alone an individual hiring. Apple confirmed.
He must have really triggered a lot of employees, because for Apple employees to do that, that's to your point, they don't normally do that. So Correct. He must have really triggered.
Yes. Apple confirmed to Axios, who I'm reading this from, that Garcia Martinez was no longer employed by the company, and said in a statement, it has, quote unquote, always strived to create an inclusive, welcoming workplace. The company declined further comment. Garcia Martinez was not immediately available for comment. And then they go on to say, in further context, news broke earlier this week that Apple had hired Garcia Martinez for an unspecified role. Apple did not say what exactly Garcia Martinez's position was. Well, I can tell you, he's going to develop their ad network. That doesn't take a genius. But sources say he was hired for a lower level engineering role. Yeah, well, the engineering of the ad network, to be precise.
Tyler, can I just share something very quickly about this ad network point you're making, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like going back in history a little bit, just from my own direct experience of this, right? So the big money is when the corporates start moving their ad money to the new spaces, right? So as you said, television was the place where, people put huge amounts of money. So my days back at Best Buy, obviously we moved from television to Facebook to social media. So I kind of saw that bit of that transition, right? And watching like just the budgets and how it moved and the internal resistance and just some of that from the inside of a large company. We had Super Bowl ads, huge amounts of ad money that would go into television and traditional media in a sense. And then what happened is this new company comes along, and this is kind of happening again in a sense to the next generation of moving of the ad money. So these new networks came along, and Sheryl Sandberg, to her credit, reached out by phone to the large companies, right? So that's that's my claim to fame. She literally called me up, called our chief marketing officer up, Chamath, who was running that kind of mobile unit more internationally. He would reach out to these large companies, and we were one of the big ad budgets, right? So they would come along, but here's what happened. The resistance inside these large companies was inside the company, right?
Yeah.
So inside my company, I was seen as this guy who would kind of try to move us into the future, a little bit. But the core people, like the chief marketing officer, would have these networks and relationships with the existing people, right? It's the ad agencies, and they make them famous, right? They make them give him a lot of face, and the ad agencies say, hey, chief marketing officer, come to our big events, come to this. And those guys, when they don't move fast enough, so we had so what I did was I created something called a Facebook Accelerator, right? And Chamath helped me create that at the time, right? So what we did was we basically moved a whole bunch of marketing people to try and move the marketing people in our online business to say, hey, can we start moving our ad money from 0% to 5% to 10% to 15% to Facebook, right? Now, the reason why I share that is that's probably what's going on inside the large companies right now to move away from Facebook.
Yep, I agree. And I didn't know that about Chamath helping you with that. That's fantastic. So
if anyone
because he
wants
was a fire starter, right?
Oh, yeah.
He,
Still is.
and he moved around, and so we call this thing called inside our company, we call it a Facebook Accelerator, right? But imagine at that time, Facebook's the startup, right? So it's the equivalent of today, somebody creating a social shopping accelerator, right, inside their company, or some new platform, right? It's it's tough for these large companies to move, but when they move, exponentially the ad money moves in that new direction. So I think that's the next place where, and so obviously Facebook's seeing that, right?
Yeah, of
they've
course.
seen it in their history.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and Facebook has a very healthy paranoia. Always have. It comes from the founder, but it's served them very well. It has a dark side, of course, but it's also why they still have such a strong position at the top far longer than most companies would. Yeah.
If anybody wants to sort of hypothesize how this might go between Apple and Facebook, you just have to look at the past 5 or 6 years of Apple versus Tesla, because they've had savage poaching and contractual battles going back and forth for hundreds and hundreds of employees.
Yep.
And it's gotten very, very, very dirty. So yeah, this could echo out across the tech space over there.
That's a great point, because Tesla was not part of this, unspoken alliance. And you're right, and I know this as a fact. On the Apple Car issue, there's been an incredible amount of back and forth between Tesla and Apple, and it is largely unreported. I don't think I've ever seen a report on it, but I know it just having friends in more so at Tesla. But and that was actually really how a lot of the Apple Car rumors were able to be confirmed, due to the poaching, essentially. Yeah. Thanks for that, Carl. Extra context as usual. And well, so what? Now that we're at the 1:30 mark, which is when I like to do the real official welcoming, because now the room's at over 300 folks, and I haven't checked yet, but I imagine we're quickly approaching the largest room in Clubhouse at the moment. But as we often do in this time zone. So welcome everybody who's now joined. We're going through the headlines. We've already gone through a few. And by the way, for those that are joining, don't send them via DMs on Twitter anymore. What you do is you tweet them yourself from your own damn Twitter account, and you CC TNATW. That's Tech News Around the World. And then I keep my window open the whole time, and I see that you've CC'd me as part of your tweet, just as Poppy just did just now. With a really interesting VW article that I'm retweeting with a single click. And now we talk about it, and people following on Twitter can see. And so Poppy just shared a tweet and CC'd me. I got it here. I retweet it with one click, and now I'm going to read it to you. The VW will start testing its Argo AI-powered self-driving vans in Germany this summer. And there's a photo of it, and it looks pretty cool, I got to say, as a self-driving VW van. And let's read a little bit about this. You might want to retweet it yourself. Already 3 people have liked it. It looks very cool. This is from The Verge. VW will start testing its Argo AI-powered self-driving vans in Germany. The plan is to launch a commercial ride-pooling service in 2025. And what a very cool looking automobile. Although if it is self-driving, I wonder why it has the appearance of a traditional car with a big front windshield when that's not really needed. You could use that as a big TV screen for everybody riding in the car, and they could watch ads, and then you could reduce the price of the ride if everyone's watching ads. Come on, Volkswagen, get your game together here. So Volkswagen will start testing its new autonomous vehicles in Germany this summer. The company announced Wednesday the German automaker's electric ID Buzz. What a terrible name. Holy Jesus. ID Buzz is what they're calling these cars. I don't mean to be critical of people doing great stuff, but I have problems with the name. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they want a name that people will complain about so they get the marketing value, and in that case, it's genius. I retract my criticism. It's brilliant. It's a genius name. ID Buzz vans will use hardware and software developed by a company called Argo AI, a Pittsburgh-based startup that is backed by Ford and VW. The aim is to launch a commercial delivery and micro-transit service in Germany by 2025. Now, that is a very important sentence because it showcases 2 different and massive use cases. The aim is to launch a commercial delivery and micro-transit service. Those are 2 very different things. Commercial delivery means they're going to be delivering all your Amazon and e-commerce packages, and micro-transit service means people competing with Uber and whatnot. And so to put those in the same sentence doesn't do it justice. The aim is to launch a commercial delivery and micro-transit service in Germany by 2025. And that's huge because previously the big players in this space were Tesla has these same ambitions, by the way. And they are going to, they're working on what they refer to as an autonomous vehicle network, which will drive and do commercial delivery and micro-transit services simultaneously while you sleep, and your Tesla makes money, monetizes itself while you sleep. And then the question is, will they even sell cars to people anymore? If you have a fully autonomous car, of course, hopefully you can add it to the network and monetize it. But at some point, maybe Tesla's like, you know what? We don't want you to buy these cars from us anymore because the cars make a lot of money for us. And we don't need you or want you to buy these cars anymore. And that might be the inevitable financial future of these things. That, in fact, that we as Tesla consumers are actually financing their ultimate vision of creating their own autonomous commercial delivery and micro-transit service. And we're just enabling the development of it by buying the cars in the meantime that aren't fully autonomous yet. But once they are, and they pay for themselves 10 times over, why on earth would they sell them to you? Something to think about. But interesting to see that Volkswagen has officially thrown its hat into this game. That's news. That is big news. That's kind of breaking news. Amazon, no doubt, has similar ambitions because they want to own the last mile of the delivery of all of their packages, and they might as well have passengers ride along on the routes that are convenient to them using, an AI algorithms of where you want to be picked up and where you want to be delivered. And no doubt those rides will be incredibly cheap and potentially free if they're ad-based, if they're showing you ads during your rides.
Tyler, we need the music. This is a Tyler soliloquy.
Is it? Anyway.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Anyway, but I mean, I have friends in the space, and these were the conversations we have at dinner, and I'm just trying to consolidate them down into 2 minutes for you, and it's not easy. But yeah, just I didn't expect VW to. I kind of did. I mean, VW is the biggest German player. They own most of the German car companies at this point, Audi and etc. And they need to do this, and they understand it. They are not. They have their eye on the ball, and they're not about to concede the German car industry to Tesla without a fight. So yeah, this makes sense. It's just I didn't know when this headline was happening. It's just happening sooner than I thought, and here it is. And there's a photo of it, and I got to say, it looks cool. Buzz, can we do a vote on the whole audience to see if we like the name ID Buzz as the name of this vehicle? What do you think, Cheryl? Buzz? You want to get inside one of these ID Buzz vehicles?
I'm just happy that I don't have to drive and be driven.
Right. Yeah. That's the future. We're all good. We are one step closer to
Tyler,
Wally.
You hate the name so much. You want validation from.
I know, exactly right. I'm like, who's with me? Who hates this name as much as I do?
It's
pretty bad.
Remind me of identification and verification, ID and V, inside tech terms. So yeah, it's quite long.
Yeah. Anyway, I did retweet the article, did I not? So that everyone can see it. I did. Thank you for that fantastic headline, Poppy.
Just quickly on the design, Tyler.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the windscreens, because you mentioned why have them at all, because you can replace them with screens.
Yeah.
I wonder if one part is like customer sentiment, that people generally don't want to be hurtling along without being able to see where they're going. But another thought's just occurred to me, that if in this period where we've got self-driving and non-self-driving cars, accidents are still going to happen, mostly propagated by the people driving. And if all the windows and whatnot are replaced on vehicles, I wonder if there's going to be an issue with emergency services getting into the vehicles if you start replacing all of the large sort of windowed areas, because then you can't really see inside, you can't see what's happening with the passengers, it's harder to cut into.
Yeah.
So I wonder
you don't want to scare people on planes, Carl, but the reason you're told to lift your blind up on the windows on a plane before you land is exactly that.
Yeah,
so that the emergency services can peer through the window to see
Jesus, Ben.
where the remaining living people are.
Thank you.
That says that they have to have windows.
Happy flying, everybody.
Yeah. Well, they could just put a big glass ceiling on the thing, and then you can, look up at the sky as you cruise around town, and they could.
Bird crap.
Yeah, a lot of bird. Yeah. Well, maybe they could make some kind of AI technology to remove the bird crap on the glass. More headlines. Yeah, go ahead, Dan. You got a green tech?
Yeah, I gotta go to sleep. I have something in the morning.
Fire away.
Three quick ones. It reached 28.1 Celsius in Oulu, Finland, just south of the Arctic Circle today. It was kind of just looking at the map there. It looked kind of amazing. That was tweeted around. New York Times has a story on how the EPA is saying climate change is making big problems bigger, and it talks about the heat and fires, and it as wasn't talked about much during the Trump administration. So now the EPA is back in the game, and the New York Times talking about the impacts, how Americans are feeling the impacts of climate change. So it's kind of interesting, kind of high level with graphs about sea level, temperature going up, all that kind of stuff. By the way, it shows the sea level has risen a little over 2 inches since this century began. In 20 years. It's kind of amazing, by the way. That's a lot. And then perhaps sometimes the most interesting one is Bill McKibben in the New Yorker has an article he writes about climate there. And the title is "It's Time to Kick Gas and Do It as Quickly as Possible." And I think this is, you combine this with so much other reporting fairly recently, by the way, about the very negative impacts of gas. And I think it's really interesting because it wasn't that long ago that gas was clean natural gas and a bridge to the future, bridge, and that's crumbling down. It was all, of course, bullshit, and it was PR. But the reality of natural gas and its terrible impact on climate and health, by the way, it's something people don't know about. It's coming around, and so what we saw in the last 5 years of coal getting bankrupt, you can expect to see something similar, I think, in the coming 5 to 10 years. And so, if you're little advice, if you're invested in that, pay a lot of attention, because the sands are shifting here on natural gas. So that's the quick 3 things, and then I'll just mention one reason I have to go to sleep, because I'm interviewing. I mentioned this previously, but Kevin Anderson is one of my favorite climate scientists. I've been tracking him for over a decade, and he tells it like it is. He doesn't sugarcoat it, and we're going to be talking about the reality of being able to reach 1.5 and 2 degrees, and how he actually talked about how academics did not serve us well in the Paris Accord by kind of hiding the tricks they use to show we can make it to 2 degrees and things like that. So it should be a very interesting talk. 9 a.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. UK time, that's where Kevin's located, and on the Climate Chat Club tomorrow. So this is one of the interview that I'm most looking forward to, and I've known him I feel like I've known him for so long. I've only chatted with him recently, but I've been following and listening to all his lectures and things like that. There should be a great discussion. So anyway, that's what I have tonight. And
Dan, I have one more news for you.
Please.
Before you sleep, okay? So Elon Musk says that Tesla has suspended accepting Bitcoin for vehicle purchase because they say that they are concerned about rapidly use of fossil fuels for Bitcoin mining and transactions, especially the coal, Mr. Musk said on Wednesday in his tweet. Yeah. Is that good news for you?
I don't know if it's good news for me. I am concerned about this. In fact, I want to do a room on that, and maybe we can do it together here. But I'm not an expert on Bitcoin, but I did look into this a little bit, and there was a film or video of this company only using gas that would have been flared to mine Bitcoin, and it was a very well produced thing, showing how they're doing their job to stop methane from being leaked, into the atmosphere, and instead capturing and doing something good with it. And I have to tell you, it reminded me a lot of these ads from fossil fuel companies showing what kind of renewable energy projects they're doing, where, you're doing that, where 99% of what you're doing is this. And I'm guessing that's similar for Bitcoin, that in general, it's very negative for the climate. However, I can imagine it being used in very positive ways for the climate if there's rules that say you can only use curtailed renewable energy. In other words, renewable energy that there's too much of it, and so they were going to just not use it, like too much solar, too much wind. And if you're required to do that, that helps finance renewable energy without hurting the environment at all. So I can imagine good ways. I think right now, the growth path it's on, let's nip it. It's not an essential service for humankind like food. And so, anyway, we could have a whole hour
Here's
on
the
that,
quote from Elon Musk and Tesla, as he just tweeted a few moments ago. Tesla has suspended vehicle purchases using Bitcoin. We are concerned about rapidly increasing use of fossil fuels for Bitcoin mining and transactions, especially coal, which has the worst emissions of any fuel. Cryptocurrency is a good idea on many levels, and we believe it has a promising future, but this cannot come at great cost to the environment. Tesla will not be selling any Bitcoin, and we intend to use it for transactions as soon as mining transactions to more sustainable. As soon as mining transitions to more sustainable energy, we're also looking at other cryptocurrencies that use less than 1% of Bitcoin's energy per transaction. So that's their, and then that had somebody did
Tyler sounds like the canary in the coal mine.
No pun intended, huh?
Well, it's also, by the way, if we actually totally switched to Bitcoin, it doesn't even theoretically work. It would be, way more energy than the Earth produces, than we produce for all.
So guys, be careful about the assumptions here. The energy consumption of Bitcoin is just a fixed quantity. It's going to use the same amount of energy moving forward. I mean, it's going to go up, but it's going to use the same amount regardless of how much we try and use it, right?
Right.
it doesn't matter how much we
What?
use it. That's not how the algorithm
Actually,
works.
Ben, I would even argue
We're
that it
talking about
would be.
mining. We're talking about
Yeah.
mining.
Let's
Not
go to
Yeah, Ben.
David.
using
He's the
mining.
authority on mining in the room here. Go ahead, David.
I would argue it would even decrease, right? Because even in the past 3 years, we've seen chip technology sort of increase in efficiency. So, at the last peak in 2017, the mining equipment back then was doing over 100 watts per terahash, and now the most effective mining rigs are doing as low as 35 watts per terahash. So that increase in efficiency and less power usage actually is outpacing the difficulty of the mining. So to Ben's point, I totally agree. While I was actually just running the figure right here. So we would the total global I guess, use of power for Bitcoin mining is about approximately. This is sort of my own Fermi calculation. Is about 8 gigawatts globally, which depends on how you look at it. It's not that big, and it will go down over time because of the increased efficiency of the chip technology using less wattage per terahash of mining.
Yeah, you're talking about the chips moving to smaller dies, so becoming more energy efficient, but you're going to run into just physics at a certain point. Moving from a 7 nanometer process to a 5 nanometer process for some of these graphics cards is great, but you're not really going to be able to get much beyond sort of 2 or 3 nanometers.
Sure. It will plateau at some point, obviously, but
Is there a limit to how much Bitcoin can be made? Or if everybody decided tomorrow to turn on all the computers, forget the energy issue for a moment, and they just wanted to mine, and they spent billions of dollars to build more mining equipment, couldn't they make more Bitcoin?
No, it would still take just as long to mine because the
No,
system would
take
adjust. We'd still be
per
finding blocks
Bitcoin.
every 10 minutes or so. Yeah.
And transaction too, Ben.
So,
How about
Mike,
if let's say Bitcoin is going to be more well adopted, there will be more and more transactions, right? So that takes
Yeah,
energy to begin it.
No, we're talking about the mining,
not necessarily
creation
more
of the currency.
transactions. No, there won't be more transactions, Cheryl. It doesn't work like that. There's a fixed block
Okay.
size. It can fit a certain number of transactions. They happen every 10 minutes. What will happen is the transactions will get more expensive, and the incentive from miners will shift from the reward of solving blocks to the reward of getting the payment fee, the
transacting.
network payment
Yeah.
fee. Yeah.
Settling. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I'm not an expert, but it's a big issue, and we should definitely. I think this is a good for techniques around the world to do like a whole hour.
Michael Saylor has perhaps the best counter argument. Ironically, as the person who enticed Elon Musk into purchasing Bitcoin for Tesla, it was reported. And so his counter to Elon's tweet is that this is ironic because no incremental energy is used in Bitcoin transaction. The energy is used to secure the crypto asset network, and the net impact on fossil fuel consumption over time will be negative, all things considered. And to David's very interesting point is, there should be additional energy savings as chips get more efficient, which of course will plateau over time, as somebody else pointed out.
Yeah,
but it keeps doubling how hard it is. That's the whole point of it, right? They expect it to get more efficient. That's the whole
what I'm
point of
trying to
it.
say earlier was the increase in difficulty has not outpaced the increase in efficiency of the chips over time.
Okay.
And
but
Dan, if you look at the
speaking,
economic
certain amount of energy.
If you look at the economic incentives, if your thesis that the renewable energy is the cheapest form of energy, then this will just drive the adoption of renewable energy because any miner you can only profitably mine if you've got very cheap access to very cheap energy.
But
that's exactly
energy,
right.
We need the energy to run the world without Bitcoin. And again, I think there are ways to do it where you take
we also
advantage
desperately
of
need to
Bitcoin.
bank. We also desperately need to bank the 2 billion, whatever number exactly it is, people that aren't banked. We also need to break down the international borders caused by all these currencies. So that I think the long-term good just outweighs the if you zoom out to a geological timescale, the blip of the energy graph that will be the mining of all the Bitcoin that will ever be, that will be done in about 2140, I believe, at current estimates, will be done, and it'll be and that will be that, and we'll have a global, trustless, decentralized monetary system. That's
On the
worth
monetary
further-
system point, Ben, just really quickly. And Cal, you really kindly called out Raman, right? The guy is an absolute legend, and I just want to recapitulate that because there's kind of, I want to just restate, there are people in the background who are not getting the limelight, but they're just furnishing rooms and people with data and facts, and because they have the passion on it. The so what here is that Raman really kindly joined your topic you just mentioned, Ben, on the currency. We did a little spin up just on central bank digital currencies last night, and he was amazing. So the so what for this discussion is, can you imagine Raman involved in this as well? And I think like sometimes people need the real invitation to come and play, and everyone gets to play here. But I like what you did there, Carl, because I like using that phrase. Everyone gets to play, and sometimes people need a little bit of encouragement. I'm Dave. I'm out.
Thanks, Dave. I just want to highlight it's interesting because Elon, a week ago, Jack Dorsey was saying that Bitcoin, sort of has a path towards more greener energy usage, which Elon responded by saying that that's true. And I imagine that this decision that Tesla announced today of kind of distancing themselves, not accepting Bitcoin for car purchases and making the statements that, about energy uses and coal, etc., it might be because the debate is still, as is evident on the stage at the moment, rather unsettled or unsettleable at the moment, because nobody's got meters connected to every power source on the planet to really do a thorough calculation on the matter, which I know Elon would love to do, having been in many board meetings with him. Nobody has the actual measures of what is really happening, and we're all pontificating and prognosticating and guessing.
I think you can get a reasonable measure, though.
You
Tyler,
could.
because what we do know is the total
Ben,
hashing rate.
Respectfully, if Elon would be the first person to get that data, and if the data came out in the favor in the way you're arguing, he would show that data very clearly for the world to digest. He would love nothing more than to do that.
I don't know if it. I don't know if it comes out in favor or not, but I'm just saying that I think you can get a reasonable guess.
The fact that
boys, let me jump in here.
The reason he's had to do the statement he did today is because he's not able to make a good sound argument that it is green.
If we
let me jump in here really quickly. So I do help manage the mining for the country that has the most mining in the world, right? So just from what we're doing in China, the two largest sources of coal production in China are Xinjiang province and Inner Mongolia. So China has moved a lot of power consumptive industries into these areas. For example, manufacturing polysilicon for the solar panels. So, in fact, 3 of the sites that I manage or my team manages is using the additional power left over. So what that means is the power plants that are actually built to to supply the factories that's making solar panels. But as you know, you can't tune down or store the energy created in these power plants. So all the extra energy that the power plants produces, we use to go mine Bitcoin. And this is why the Chinese state is so effective at mining Bitcoin, because they know where all of the extra energy resources are. So for example, if you're making this much electricity out of your power plant, all the extra is just being lost on the grid if no one else is taking it. So all that extra, the Chinese government, as a centralized government, can calculate where we go and build each facility to use that extra delta capture.
Right.
And you're saying that's coal. You're saying that's coal power. Is that what you just
For the
said?
most part, yes, because it's the most stable and relatively the
then
cheapest.
that's not a good thing. Sorry.
But you're
There are many
using
other
but
ways
that
you
coal
can
power
control
is
your
being
grid
produced
so that you don't
regardless.
waste energy. They don't send energy.
But yeah, but he's saying the coal is being made at a steady state, a steady rate to use the purpose being used for, and they are shaving off the top optimally to maximize the use of it that it would be used for anyway. That's his argument.
Exactly.
Again, I'm not an expert on what's going on there. It doesn't sound kosher, but you balance the grid with other resources, so that means they could have turned down some other plant somewhere else. I mean, it's if you're using coal
but
to
this
make
is Inner
Bitcoin.
Mongolia in Xinjiang. We're talking about middle of nowhere. You probably have a population density of 4 people in a square mile. And
Well, it doesn't matter because CO2 is a global
global
gas. It doesn't matter where you put it out. It's
no,
everywhere.
I totally recognize that. But I'm saying they're going to burn the coal to make for example, solar panels or whatever else the factories are making anyway. We're only capturing the excess energy that's created and unused.
I got you. My
And surely
point.
it also
Yeah.
Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
My point is that Elon takes no pleasure in making this announcement today. And so why is he making an announcement that he doesn't want to make? That's what I want you. That's what I want to encourage the people in the room to consider.
Sorry, Tyler,
But he's also got
dropped off there. I
the other
tried to make
day.
the point about confidence. Was that picked up?
Say again,
So,
Jonathan.
I mean, shareholder confidence was affected.
Your mic is
Can you
cutting
hear
in
me?
and out,
I
Jonathan.
think he's saying shareholders' confidence.
Yeah, my point is precisely that. Well,
shareholders' confidence and also confidence in the underlying asset itself.
correct. Well,
you know, I buy a Tesla car at $60,000 today.
Correct.
Using my Bitcoin, but
Correct.
Tomorrow Bitcoin is worth $30,000.
Jonathan,
So
none of that since the last look. I mean, none of this argument that you're saying it wasn't true. A few weeks ago, and none of this thing, all the things you're saying, it still held a few weeks ago, right? I think this is just another. What is to say that he's going to wake up tomorrow and say, "Sorry, my account was hacked, guys, just move on," right?
Exactly.
So the thing is, there's a fundamental. There's a fundamental issue in the way Elon is dealing with this thing. He's not stupid, guys, right? He knows the issue with the energy, before buying Bitcoin. He knows the issue with someone in the public company. I think this is something. The day that we got the data released yesterday of the inflation is 4.2%. I think he's just starting to get calls from the regulators, and someone inside saying, "Hey, calm down. We are coming this way." I think this is the start of the sign of the regulators starting to starting to reach out to people in this space. I think that's what
One other data point, which is not like I don't know if it's related at all, of course, but he's facing pressure in China for his Tesla car, right? Like just we had a couple of headlines around the land that he's not getting or etc. So that's just a data point, right?
Yeah, it could be. Cal, I want to make note of what Cal's saying, because that could later down the road, in days and weeks to come, that might come back to be a very prescient observation. That is not; those dots aren't easy to connect today, but they might down the road. So let's make note of what that point.
And one more thing, I guess trading Bitcoin probably helped his company with the operating profit for last year. So that is done already. So that's why maybe he's taking a more, stepping back a bit.
Right.
And I think he's also promoting Dogecoin. Right?
Yeah, but Cheryl, let's focus on what he's actually saying in his press statement, and why he's saying it, and why is he announcing it today, and why it's an embarrassment for him to make a statement like this. He doesn't want to make this statement. Let's please focus on the bigger global, psychological, corporate issue at hand here, and not worry about the price of Bitcoin, because that isn't the key of the issue here.
Exactly.
Okay, one more thing. One day before this, he actually tweeted a survey whether to use Dogecoin to pay for Tesla, yes or no. So I don't know what's the result, but he actually has a tweet on that too.
Yeah, he did. Another interesting point is the amount of the price that Bitcoin fell as a result of his tweet saying that they're no longer going to accept Bitcoin. It's a rather substantial, noticeable drop on volume, people selling Bitcoins as a result of Elon's tweet.
The thing is, Tyler, you're not adding is that he did say that he hasn't sold any of the Bitcoin
Correct.
holdings.
No, I did say that. They said that, and I repeated it.
Oh, sorry. I just joined. I think so. It's got nothing to do with I think he's clearly under some pressure, right? If you look at the NASA contract, he also lost recently the NASA the moon landing contract as well.
He didn't lose it.
There's a lot
won
of
it. Sorry, he won it, and people are challenging it.
Correct.
He won the contract.
He won the contract. Now the NASA has told him to hold off any work on the moon landing project because of the challenge from Amazon, right? The way the contract's been. So this is not because they don't want to give it to Elon. This is the power that the government have, right? There is a way that if they want to go after things, this is how it starts. It's a bit like the pebble in your shoes, right? They will put small pebbles just to see how he reacts. I think he's starting to feel the pressure on all that. The kind of the culture that he created around this crypto space. I think this is someone just patting on his back and say, "Hey, Elon, just calm down." I think that's what I see, and he's starting to see the pressure in the business.
And maybe someone just convinced him that actually this is not great for the environment. It could be as simple as that.
I
No
think
way,
Thanks,
because
Tyler.
I take Kieran's point about the timing, that this is not new information. Nothing. There's been no step change in the
correct.
energy argument over the past few months. So that's another point that's interesting about the
Guys,
timing. If there's no step change in the argument,
Correct.
what is the timing here in the bigger picture with the Doge stuff, with all of it? What's the timing? It'd be very interesting to see if Tesla ended up buying more Bitcoin quietly during this period after that announcement.
It'd also
I
be
think what
interesting if they secretly sold a bunch before announcing that they are doing this, knowing the price was going to drop
and he
15% in
I
an
mean
hour.
and then he can't do that as that's a lie,
Oh,
that's blatant lie, that isn't it? It's a public, he has made sure he told that he hasn't
he's
sold any of his
the company hasn't. That's separate from himself personally.
yeah, but that's he's the CEO of the company, no?
Well,
His own private holdings.
No, come on, why we just come on. So then if it's a private holding, then how did it affect the Tesla profit, Cheryl? So you say that he used that Bitcoin to make sure that the first time in 15 years Tesla turned profit. So what does that got to do with personal holding?
okay,
You can't just
I'm going to make the correct final assessment here. As Ben correctly observed, there really hasn't been much change in all of the data and core information, which Elon is so fond of using to make his decisions in life. And the one big change has likely been consumer and shareholder sentiment around Tesla and the optics and PR value of attaching itself too closely to something where the argument is not fully defendable that it is green or that it is dirty. And so in the meantime, they need to do a pause. And so that's why they're not selling it, but that's why they're not accepting it. So they're in a holding phase until one side of the argument is a more clear winner. And then I can assure you, when one side has the data on their side, Tesla will take that side, and they will either be very pro or very against, whoever is able to make the case that it's green or dirty. So moving on, and I can only say that because having spent many hours in a board meeting with him, I will spare you all the burden of guessing what's going through his mind. So next article was the U.S.-China tech war. Taiwan's TSMC joins America's chip coalition in another blow to China's self-sufficiency drive. Coming from Poppy. I did retweet it from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account. Thank you to everybody who's sending in the articles now fast and furious and not sending them to my DMs. Shame on you, Matthias, or let's see if I should shame you or not. No, you're not sending me articles. Good. First it was Jack Ma, and now it's Elon. Okay, and but yeah, please spare my DMs and send your articles to the Tech News Around the World Twitter account by tweeting it from your account and CCing TNATW for Tech News Around the World, as Cheryl just did, as Poppy just did. And thank you, Cheryl, for the Elon Musk suspending Bitcoin article, which I retweeted, and this new TSMC joins U.S. chip coalition in potential blow to China, as reported by the Chinese publication South China Morning Post. So when a Chinese publication is making you can essentially believe it. In this case, U.S.-China tech war. Taiwan's TSMC joins American chip coalition in another blow to China's self-sufficiency drive, which, in all fairness, a lot of countries are trying to become more self-sufficient with regard to their semiconductor production. China, very notably, America, very notably, but those are not unique. Major world chip makers and buyers set up new coalition to bolster America's semiconductor industry, very notably by Intel, TSMC, Apple, and others are spending billions and billions and billions of dollars in creating multiple new facilities in the Arizona area with lots of help from the White House. New coalition may make it harder for China to achieve semiconductor independence from U.S. technologists and analysts say, yes, that's correct. And yes, that's been the plan all along, ever since Trump got in the White House and Bannon and others realized what's really going on in this big global scope of things, and they realized if we need to get these semiconductors out of the hands of the Chinese or China's going to take over the world. That's their perspective that I'm just kind of reiterating for you. And that's we're now in the later stages of this game of the U.S. trying to rein in and reconsolidate the essence and the source of the power now in this global power structure. It comes down to these goddamn chips. And
the language, Tyler, is really interesting because when you said the word may,
yeah.
I took a yellow highlighter out to it, and it's just like we do the interpretation and we know will,
yeah,
and we're looking out for the critics say all usual, like, but I mean, the so what is like a whole cohort of people don't do this, so I'm just commending it to the audience.
Yeah.
Please do it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, but essentially, the U.S. has realized the key to pulling back power from China is to take control of the chips. And it's amazing how now that the world is fully chipified, that's what enables smart everything. That's what enables progress and power. And the source of all this is the chips. It happens to be geographically have a real strong foothold in Taiwan, but even that's now moving to the U.S. as TSMC, as the article says from the South China Morning Post, and as the South China Morning Post concedes itself. This is a blow to China. Indeed, it is. That's been the plan all along. It's been years in the making, and now it's finally the physical manifestation is in place now. TSMC committed to building 5 new factories. Intel's building new factories. Apple's building new factories, all in the U.S., which was actually kind of unimaginable 5 years ago. It was they were all going to be built, elsewhere. But now that it's become a self-sufficiency, supply chain battle. It's, by the way, please make note. And here's another Tyler soliloquy. The chips is the first. Once the chips are secured, it will go into other things. And I can tell you right now, food will be one of the next big ones. And people will start realizing, who's got all the grains and the soy and the corn and the fruits and this and the that. And there's going to be squabbles and territorial pissings over the food supply chains. That will be coming next. And the water as well is going to become a very important issue. And the energy. And those, by the way, are the big 4 of the pillars of having a stable society. And so all 4 of those will be fought over. And the lines will be divided on the maps of who's supplying who to where and what. And that's why China is building trains into Thailand and Myanmar to avoid having to use the naval routes that can be apprehended by opponents, and to get the food and water supply and yada, 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 yada. It's all coming. I've been studying this for a few years now. It's why I've sequestered myself to a hidden private island with my own water, energy, and food production here in Thailand. And yeah, it's fun. Come spend a week with me over here, and we'll go deep on it if you want to. Thanks to Diwa for sharing an article about crypto Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin donates 1 billion worth of Shiba Inu tokens to India's to India's relief, essentially. And I tweeted that from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, and that is fantastic. That Vitalik is clearly already becoming a very sizable philanthropist with his earnings in the crypto space. Kudos to him for that. Next interesting one was from Dave. Love this one, man. This was kind of breaking news today. The update on the Colonial Pipeline issue. Colonial Pipeline resumes operations following ransomware attack. Reopening of critical artery comes just 5 days after a shutdown sparked panic buying of petrol, which led many gas stations on the America's East Coast to run out of petrol momentarily, causing some very clever people to tweet that maybe Tesla might be behind the hack, driving people to buy electric cars that are not dependent on such petrol stations. It was more of a joke, but kind of interesting joke nonetheless. And but now it's the pipeline resumes operation, as I've retweeted. Thank you, Dave, for that headline. And that's good news indeed. And that does reflect on why the hackers themselves realized the mistake they had made, that they were trying to ransom something that they themselves didn't ultimately hold the keys over, which is the physical pipeline. They only held the keys over the data, which doesn't actually control the pipeline. And that they realized the company was just going to replace the digital hack part and fix the pipeline because it's a physical manual thing. It's not a virtual digital thing that was hacked. And so they were able to fix it. They fixed it. And now these hackers are not going to get the ransom. And they've got the wrath of the NSA and CIA, and all the intelligence community are now going to come down heavy on them. And they will be spending very long years in jail if they happen to be living in places with extradition treaties. So if I were one of those hackers, I would quickly do a Google search for countries that don't have extradition to America and move yourself very quickly to one of those countries where you will not be extradited to America, or you will be spending the rest of your life behind bars. Just a little tip to those hacker friends.
The other real big thing in this story, Tyler, is that their software as a service consumption has increased 150%. And I've also heard that they've come out with a buy one get one free offer only 20 minutes ago. So you heard it here, folks.
I love it. Yeah. So, but interestingly, yeah, how they, as soon as they did the hack, it was like 2 days later, they started backpedaling. Like, actually, we're just trying to make a quick buck here. We're not state actors. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the trouble, officer. Please don't kill us. And now they got nothing except the heat and the lifelong jail sentences over their heads if they should ever leave Russia, or which is why Snowden's in Russia, by the way, because there's no extradition treaty from. I'm not making a comment on Snowden, by the way. I'm just saying the reason he's in Russia is because he's rightfully concerned about being extradited to the U.S., as Julian Assange was concerned about that as well, which is why he had to stay in the embassy. And wild to see how those shake out. But they are in some ways related. These issues of when governments want. And by the way, the thing that is connecting all three of these, of course, is digital information and how the state responds to digital information that they don't want to be exposed or embarrassed by. Again, no judgments on any of these cases. My point is that it's interesting to observe to what lengths countries will go to silence people for essentially sharing information. In the case of Julian Assange or Snowden or these hackers, essentially. So, in the case of the hackers, it went a bit further and it jeopardized the pipeline, which is why it's a bit more severe. But
it nearly rivaled TSMC for the Tyler soliloquy faction, but didn't quite get there.
But look at the really interesting one to look at was the Pirate Bay, because the Pirate Bay had files. And they were sharing files, which is information. This is my point. And Peter, who's spoken at many my events in Sweden from the Pirate Bay, did go to jail. In fact, the whole team went to jail from the Pirate Bay. And they went to jail kind of willingly, kind of self-sacrificially to keep the service running. And they managed to create the Pirate Bay in a way that still exists today as a big middle finger to the face of America and Sweden and the authorities who were tried very vigilantly to shut it down and are not able to. And it stands as a glorious flaming monument of an FU to the United States in the same way that Castro felt about Cuba. It's like you cannot, as much as Castro claimed that the U.S. tried to kill him hundreds of times unsuccessfully, when it is interesting to observe when there are these huge power struggles, when the underdog is able to stand up to, the Goliath, there's not many instances of that. But, Castro is kind of interesting in that perspective. Pirate Bay is interesting in that perspective. The Silk Road did get shut down, in part due to his ex-girlfriend kind of exposing him. Otherwise, the Silk Road would probably still be in operation today. And it's interesting to see, can technology exist against the U.S.'s wishes? Because Bitcoin itself might have to come down to this. That's why it's interesting to analyze this. Because eventually, if the U.S. decides we are going to, or any country, but especially the U.S., if they decide, actually, we have made a ruling in the U.S. Congress, Bitcoin is illegal. If you own it, you go to jail and you'll be shot by a firing squad. What happens then? And so that's why it's interesting to look at historical examples of when the U.S. really wanted to shut something down and to what lengths were they able to go to. And that's why the Pirate Bay is so interesting, because the Pirate Bay still exists, even though they put those people in jail. So it's
I think what happens then is a lot of boating accidents. I've forgotten my access code to Bitcoin that I own.
Oh, hold on. Here's that one. Yes, indeed. Weird things start to happen. Airplanes start crashing and boats start disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle, etc. So to be continued. You're exactly good.
But
good
Tyler,
point.
you don't need to look that far. U.S. I mean, we've been talking about this in terms of the regulatory power that they have, right? So, for example, I don't know if you remember after the 2008, they had the fix that they went after. As you remember, that all of the global every institution in the world, they use a benchmark, and that benchmarks got manipulated for so many years by banks. And you saw how the US and the rest of the world went after, all of those banks, and they literally just, find them to a point that can make them bankrupt, right? So there are many ways that they have many, all they need to do is just change one line on the regulation, which people who got involved in ICOs now they be classified as a security. All of them were illegal. Let's just lock them up, and just all they need to do is just change one single line, and the whole domino just falls down, right? They don't need to even go after mining or individuals. They just need to literally change how they perceive the crypto and Bitcoin as, and that's when you will see the whole card just falling down.
So I got David, you shared a really interesting one on China as our resident, one of our resident China experts. China easing migration and urban employment. Sorry, China easing migration and urban employment easing much of the concerns, highlighting the recent published 2020 census. China is oh, I see. This is your ramblings. That's why I'm like, what? Who's this journalist that is torturing this? It's your own tweet headline. Let me read the actual headline here from South China Morning Post again. China is relaxing its rules on household registrations. The Hoku system has been accused of creating two classes of people, urban and rural. But it is now much easier for people to choose where they want to live and work. And this is a really interesting look into how Chinese society is structured, both in terms of and not only China, a lot of Asia, Thailand is actually very similar, where you register as part of a community of a city, and your resources, meaning your healthcare and your education, are tied to that community essentially, and it does make it tricky to relocate and move across the country in ways. And this South China Morning Post does a deep dive on that and why. The headline is China is relaxing its rules around household registrations. That's what it means. It means it's making it easier for people to move because there is this, as the headline also says, the system is accused of creating two classes of people, urban and rural, because they're kind of locked into those spaces geographically, and they need to make a little more fluidity to kind of break up the two classes of that. It's a really interesting deep dive you can do. I just retweeted it from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account. Thank you for that, David. Let's see what other good articles we got going on here today. A lot of headlines going on. I want to pause to see. We did green tech with Dan. I want to see if others have fintech, or we could go into Africa. We did a bit of Asia. We could do India. We could do med tech, other fintech. Hassam, any interesting med tech to share today?
No, nothing to share today.
Okay.
Tyler, could we do central bank digital currencies a little bit?
Do it. Fintech. Yeah. Let's do fintech.
Yeah. So, there's plenty of people on this stage who've got a lot to say about this, and Kieran, I love.
I was about to say you're coaxing the demon of Kieran with that. Yeah.
Asking for it.
Yes.
But so let me track it back to whenever you were talking about the banning crypto, Tyler. So imagine digital yuan and digital pound, and it's all up and running. Then, what's our future casting into what's going to happen whenever they are all up and running? I think the impact on crypto and.
But what is the headline, Dave?
There's well, I mean, the headline is weeks ago, the Bank of England.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ben had the discussion yesterday. Ben had a sighting yesterday.
Ben,
discussing that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Ben, you hosted a room yesterday with other folks that went on for quite a while. And you want to give a quick synopsis, update on some of the thoughts that came out of that?
With regards to digital CBDCs?
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, it was about blockchain in general.
Blockchain in general. Yeah, it was a fantastic room. Thanks for everybody for being there. Two and a half, 3 hours. I think it nearly went on. Some people really late into the evening. I mean, there were discussions across the map, really. CBDCs was one of them. I'm not sure how I'd summarize what we said about it. I don't think we got to a useful conclusion on CBDCs. Cheryl was encouraging us quite rightly to widen the discussion beyond just cryptocurrencies to applications of blockchain as a whole. And we're going to make an effort to bring more blockchain blockchain as a whole, not cryptocurrency specifically, people in. Yeah, I mean, there were too many like threads of conclusions. There wasn't one big theme from yesterday, I don't think, Tyler.
Yeah.
Ben, what about the rail that we would, if CDBCs are to get spun up, like what rail would be, do you think would be used?
What rail would be used?
Like what
which blockchain?
Like Bitcoin? Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Oh, I see. Okay, which blockchain
better
would be used?
Yeah.
Well, I presume they'd roll their own, which means that it's not. There's nothing in CBDC that says that it's distributed or decentralized.
Right. Because China has their own blockchain for their own CBDC, and China's digital currency is on its own chain. And you imagine that if the UK does theirs or the US does theirs, they'll want to do it on their own chain that they control.
Yeah, and this is the point that I'm concerned the public will miss, is that you take a ledger, which have been around for longer than writing, who owes who what, been on walls of caves for forever. You add in trust and you get a currency, if you like. You have to trust the person maintaining the ledger. The thing that crypto or Bitcoin initially kicked off was the idea you can cross out the word trust and you can replace it with cryptography. So ledger plus cryptography equals cryptocurrency. So if you can't take the word trust away, then you don't have the same spirit, you don't have the same thing. And the only way you can take the word trust away and be a trustless system, not a system you can't trust, but a system where you don't need to trust any individual, especially a central individual, the only way that you can do that is to be very carefully set up the incentives, the rewards, the game theory, so that this thing is truly decentralized and incentivized to be decentralized. Wow. Too many words ending "ized." So, and that is not the case with CBDC, and it's not the case actually with most cryptocurrencies that are out there. That's just the game theory just doesn't work. It's too expensive to strengthen the network as an individual. I recently decided to add a Bitcoin node. By the way, don't hate me for energy usage. A node only uses about 10 watts of power, very, very little, and there's only thousands of them in the world. And that node cost me, a couple of $100, and it sits there on a Raspberry Pi, just doing its thing, strengthening the network. You can't do that.
If you could please hook it up, if you could hook it up to your Peloton, that would be much appreciated, though.
Yeah, exactly, for the extra 10 watts. Yeah, no problem, easy to do.
Yeah.
Tyler, Sarah just tweeted something regarding China fintech.
Okay, I'm going to go chronologically here. I just retweeted Ben's article about Bitcoin ticking down 17% in Asia as a result of the Elon Musk's tweets. Thank you for that, Ben. And thank you for hosting that room yesterday. As you said, it went on for nearly 3 hours, and there was 100 folks in there doing, it was
great.
150,
we're going to do it every 150 or so. Yeah, we're going to do it every. There was a big spike up there, Tyler, when you ended the main room. So thanks for that. We're going to do it next week, every Wednesday, starting half an hour later, 2.5 hours after the start of the late session.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's such a brilliant. I refer to these as deep dive rooms because these conversations deserve 3 hours to have, and on a weekly basis, as Ben is now hosting, and it's fantastic that it affords us to keep the headlines rolling here because we want to go into those deeper conversations, but we also want to get through the headlines. So it's a win-win. Mafalda sent in a tweet about Unmind, a startup closing a $47 million Series B to nurture and improve mental health and to highlight the fact that it's Mental Health Week for those who might not have heard that. So thank you for sharing that, Mafalda. And Cheryl shared one about South Korea announces enhanced tax benefits for local chip makers as they want to ramp up their local chip production. As my rant said earlier, it's not just the U.S. and China. Korea is also, by the way, Samsung is recognized as maybe the second largest chip maker, and they definitely want to protect their national interests in that regard as well. And then another one from Poppy: tech companies that fail to keep children safe online could face huge fines in the UK. What a great headline. And this goes back to a really interesting debate we had just a couple of days ago about is tech safe for kids? Because there was an very interesting study came out on 48 hours ago at the same exact time that 44 of America's attorney generals, keep in mind there's only about 50 of them, and I've never seen anything like this in American political history. I could be wrong, but to have 44 American attorney generals from 44 different states all simultaneously writing a letter to Mark Zuckerberg to say, please do not release Instagram for kids, at the same day that an Oxford study came out saying internet usage does not have any real negative consequences over the long term for kids. And that was a really amazing coincidence that study came out the same time that the attorney generals in America were wanting to stop the Instagram for kids. And it'll be interesting to see what happens if they do release Instagram for kids.
Tyler,
Yes.
because I live in Oxford,
Yep.
I've since reached out to that guy. He's in the Oxford. There's a couple of people. There's one from the psychology department, and another guy from the Oxford Internet Institute, right? Which has got leanings in one way. If you look back again, the Oxford Internet Institute it's actually fairly political driven, right? If you look back cynically at all the things that they've researched. Now, what's interesting is I've reached out to this guy through somebody in the university to try and meet up or to discuss this, and I haven't had a response yet. But you've got me on this. This is it's a good lesson for all of us about how we
Media hygiene.
understand where these research is done. Yeah, it's just wonderful. It's such a great. I've actually used it with my daughter actually to teach her to Cheryl's point earlier. How do you role model? How do you help young people understand the world around them? And obviously, as a parent, I have that vested interest, and I've used this case as a way to kind of how do you look at headlines? How do you think about that? So it's very, very interesting.
I just got a really beautiful DM, by the way, from someone in the audience, clearly, who says they are from MENA. Says, "Hi, Tyler. I'm from Myanmar. Definitely want to connect. I love your take on China railroads." As somebody from Myanmar, so thank you for that. I intentionally not revealing your name, but much appreciated. And yet, thank you, Cal, as well. Yeah, that whole issue about the sources and the motives behind. I mean, PR and these headlines that we go into each day are a game, and it's a sort of a soft war between parties with strong financial interests, and they use the media as a weapon. And that's welcome to 2021 of weaponized media. And everybody's involved: the politicians, the big tech companies, the big corporates, yada yada yada, and everyone's using information as a tool. And that's why social media is so frickin' divisive and interesting, and we need to understand it for what the weaponized sort of divisive, narrative shaping, politically agendized tool that it is. And other state actors are using it and knowing it as such and realize it as such. And that's why we got to go into this with our tactical gear on, and be careful not to step on mines, and be careful of what we're retweeting, and get into the analysis of who's writing this article, what is their motive, why now, and connect the dots. And that's where it gets really interesting. And that's why this room's so interesting, because this is not something any one person could do. It's not something any four people could do. You honestly need what is only possible by the magic of Clubhouse. And honestly, that's why this is, we have to stop and thank Clubhouse for allowing this to even happen, because it's never been done before, where you can get, 20 smart people from around the world geographically and across multiple disciplines to share their geographic and professional expertises in a way that allow us to do this very fruitful experiment that we are addicted to doing now twice a day. Click on the title of the room to see the schedule. So that's what we're all about here.
Here.
And let's keep the party rolling. There's folks in the audience that have their hands up who want to join the conversation. So welcome Patrick and Adarsh, and Ronnie. Welcome to the stage as well. And John Manga, I brought you up recently. Anything you'd like to share, please go ahead in sort of popcorn style.
Tyler, I just wanted to add some news on social media.
Yeah.
So a Facebook moderator has, for the first time, given evidence revealing the mental toll of the job to a parliamentarian committee. The Irish Parliament had our moderators viewed graphic content for up to 8 hours a day, and she said they are not provided adequate psychological support, and they don't have the freedom to speak out. Equally, they can't speak out about the content that they see to their friends or family.
Awesome, John.
Because they've signed an NDA.
Yes. Thank you for this. Let's talk about this. This is super interesting. Do you have a link I can? Where's this information that you found?
It's on BBC.
BBC, and what is the title of it?
The title is Facebook moderator, quote unquote, every day was a nightmare.
This is an old article, is it not?
Hold on. 17 hours ago. Not so old.
17 hours ago. Okay, well, here, let's jump into this. This is super interesting. And hopefully Michelle's on stage to give a counter perspective. She works at Facebook in the media team, and she's brilliant and has...
I'm hoping for that too.
Yeah, she has consistently, I have to say, if I ever start a tech company, I'm going to make sure she's involved in whatever capacity she wishes to be. I think any company would be lucky to have her. I think Facebook is incredibly lucky to have her.
Not if I can hire first.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Any startup that
She's truly brilliant and is able to share an insight into what the inner workings of Facebook in such a brilliant way that is incredibly useful to our exercise here each day. But to this point, the headline from the BBC, and kudos, John, and thank you for sharing this brilliant article. Facebook moderator says every day was a nightmare. And the lady's name is Isabella Plunkett. And I'm assuming she is from the Philippines. As I've said many times before, friends of mine who do a company called TaskUs, which was born out of my hometown of Santa Monica when it was just a tiny team of my two best buddies, where we spent Bali together. We spent Christmas and New Year's together in Bali 3 years ago at their house that they rented. They own and operate TaskUs. TaskUs is the largest moderation team. They're now up to 30,000 some folks in Manila, and they're now expanding globally to do moderation for the big social media networks and others. And so it's not a surprise when I see that the person who is in the source of this BBC article, Isabella Plunkett, I'm guessing that she's is Filipina. So anyway, let's read this together. A Facebook moderator has for the first time given evidence revealing the mental toll of the job to a parliamentary committee. And that is interesting. The reason I thought this might be an old article is because I saw an article very similar to this about a year ago of Facebook moderators sharing their, how difficult their job is and the amount of incredible violence and hate crimes that they deal with on an hourly basis, and it has a mental toll on them. And that was the article I remember from a year ago. This is a very new article, as it says 17 hours ago. And more interestingly, it's in front of a parliamentary committee. The Irish Parliament heard how moderators view graphic content up to 8 hours a day. Law firm Foxglove and the Communication Workers Union representing moderators called for better psychological support and freedom to speak out. Facebook said it provides 24-hour support to staff. Isabella Plunkett has worked for Facebook content moderator for just over 2 years and still works there. Her job is to review posts on the platform, which can contain graphic violence, exploitation, extremism, abuse, and suicides. The 26-year-old said she could not speak to her friends or family about the things she saw at work due to a non-disclosure agreement, what we call an NDA in the business, which she had signed at the beginning of her contract. Members of Ireland's Joint Committee on Enterprise, Trade, and Employment commended her bravery in speaking out. And here are some of her juicy quotes. I'm here speaking out, and I don't actually necessarily know in detail what I'm legally allowed to say and not say. Of course, because she signed a non-disclosure agreement, she's not allowed to say anything. So she's putting herself at some risk by even appearing in this way. She goes on to say, it was always clear we couldn't speak out about our job. We couldn't speak out about our job to family, friends, and it's definitely a workplace with a sense of secrecy. Yeah, that's what the NDAs are for. Facebook told the BBC that NDAs are standard practice and that reviewers can discuss any aspects of their jobs with doctors and counselors. That's true. That would be unethical if they were not allowed to. Staff can discuss the general challenges and rewards of their jobs with family and loved ones, but not specific details concerning the content they are viewing. And then she says, I've done the job for 2 years and I don't think I could do it for much longer because of the strain it does cause to your mental health. Isabella told the BBC, it's not like a normal job where you can go work and go home and forget about it. The stuff you're seeing is really ingrained in your mind. And this is, it goes on to say, I will share this from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account. So you guys can do the whole article as you wish. And thank you for sharing this, John. It is, as the article I read a year ago. What a it's a very difficult job, and interesting that it took somebody potentially breaking their NDA to go before the parliamentarians there, apparently in Ireland, to kind of shed some light on that, and then the BBC gets wind of it, and then let's see where it goes from there. This may not be the end of this particular story, because you might end up seeing, as Poppy said in the article just a minute ago, tech companies that fail to keep children safe online could face huge fines in the UK, according to CNET, and I just retweeted that. So those are
Tyler, the 24-hour support. Let's be precise. What is it? It's hypothesis. It's a phone number to some like round the clock Bupa style. Hello, I'm someone. So like let's. It irritates me a little bit whenever they get to obfuscate the reality.
Right.
But I hope that the committee did a proper cross-examination with some real well-versed, verbally dexterous people, and I hope that this gets proper airtime and thorough coverage.
To that point, she does say in the article, every day was a nightmare, and adding that the support given was insufficient. Facebook says psychological help.
So Tyler, why is the hearing now? So just to tie it into the Oxford research, and so why do you think this hearing taking place now? Why do you think that is?
Thank you, Kieran, and that's that is why this room is so special, because we introduce and kudos to you for consistently bringing up the difficult side of the argument often. Which is important for us to do as an exercise of hygiene in analyzing what the hell's really going on here. Is this, in fact, this article strategically timed, just like the Oxford report was, just like the 44 attorney generals are pushing on Facebook? And are these all just a coincidence?
So let me tell you what's going on, Tyler, right? So I don't know if you remember, the Facebook have a 9 billion Irish tax row that's been going on for the last 12 years, right? I don't know if you guys remember the way the Facebook does things is that they register in the island so that the IP, the way they do the IP valued, so they pay less tax. So there's been this case, it's been going on for the last 12 years. I think that's going to be coming in the forefront, given that the amount of pressure that they've been having. So this is I get a feeling this is the government way of bringing this into the front line of what's the working practices like in Facebook. So it's just I think it's just all kind of laying the groundwork.
Yeah, who, if anybody, stands to benefit by this article and the one that Poppy just shared about tech companies are going to be that fail to keep children safe online could face huge fines in the UK. And the online safety bill, as they're calling it. Does anyone have a strong, potentially financial interest in Facebook being highly regulated in this way? Because that would be interesting to follow that money trail if one exists there. I don't know that there does. I'm just tossing that out.
I mean, the tenuous one that I'm going to spin out is like, maybe someone with an agenda on the kind of more free thinking startup system in Ireland and like wanting to have more of an even footing, but like it's really tenuous. Tyler, that would be quite laudable, right?
Let's read this article, this CNET article about the online safety child bill to see if this is another piece that connects in this puzzle. So it says tech companies that fail to keep children safe online could face huge fines in the UK. Senior managers could also face criminal charges. And services could be blocked altogether if tech companies fail to comply with the country's online safety bill. That's very strong wording. That means they would shut down entire social networks. Facebook could be shut down in the UK if they fail to keep children safe, quote unquote. If new legislation successfully comes into play in the UK, tech companies there could face major financial penalties for keeping children safe online or not removing racist and other harmful content. Oh, wow. This plays right into the other article of Isabella as the content moderator. So it's all about removing racist and other harmful content. And if they don't do that, they could face huge fines, jail time, or entire being shut down. Interesting. A draft company of the country's online safety bill, which has been years in the making, was published by the government on Wednesday after being announced at in the Queen's speech. It's expected to come before Parliament in the next few months. The online safety bill, previously known as the Online Harms Bill, is a key piece of legislation that would place the UK media watchdog in charge of regulating tech companies in Britain. They will have the power to fine tech companies $25 million or 10% of their annual revenue, whichever is higher, if they fail to remove harmful or illegal content. So if Isabella isn't able to keep doing her nightmare job, Facebook might have to pay 10% of their annual revenue to the UK.
That's incredible.
Yes.
The scale of that is like on the revenue 10%. That's a body blow.
Senior managers at Facebook and other tech companies could even face criminal charges if those companies consistently fall short of their obligations. Quote here from the UK, it's time for tech companies to be held to account and to protect the British people from harm, UK Home Security Secretary Priti Patel said in a statement. If they fail to do so, they will face penalties. Now, let's read that again carefully. Knowing who's actually doing the content moderation. It's Isabella in Ireland who's talking before the Parliament, talking about her nightmare job where she's suffering from PTSD and has insufficient backing, right? Or support. Let's read it again. It's time for tech companies to be held account and protect the British people from harm, from this harmful content that needs to be moderated. Isabella, you need to do your, but of course they're not yelling at Isabella. They're yelling at Facebook. They need to make sure that this content is moderated. And so that puts more pressure on Facebook to put on Isabella. But yet Isabella is now going before the Parliament and saying what a nightmare job she has, her own words. And so if Isabella is not able to do what she's been doing, what she says she can't do, she's saying she now needs to quit after 2 years. Facebook's in a bit of a pickle here and looks like they might be coughing up 10% of their annual revenue to the UK if they are not able to keep Isabella doing what they hired her to do.
So, Tyler, what this sounds like is that, so there's going to be a massive job. If anyone, young people wants to go into a job, this is the great area to be in, because this happened in the financial industry as well. Remember when what I was telling you earlier about when the regulators put a certain condition after the 2008, there was a massive hiring spree on the compliance and regulatory side of things, because one of the conditions the government did is that if you break any of these rules, you'll be fined 10% of the certain revenue. So what they've done is, in order to please the regulator, they went on a massive hiring spree on the compliance, and that's became one of the hottest hiring. So I can see a scenario in the tech space. This is going to be the hottest space where they're going to be looking for people who can come in and control this space.
But I
26,000 people. 26,000 people today work in compliance in HSBC. Just to echo your point, Kieran, as a data
exactly,
point.
absolutely. That's the 10%. I mean, that's 20% of their whole entire working force. If you compare that to prior to 2008, it was about you would say almost about 2, 3, 4%, right? So that's the difference it made. The amount of investment the bankers made after the regulators asking the banks to regulate how the banks takes risk. So I think this is coming to the tech space. This is how it slowly kind of nudges into the this space. I think tech. This is their way of regulations coming after.
Yeah, but I think also there's an opportunity for them to double down on artificial intelligence. They do it to a certain degree, but I think it's not doing a good job for now. It's not helping enough. But I think they do employ artificial intelligence to try and reduce the amount of work that the moderators are fed.
Yeah, I just noticed that Raman appears to have joined us, and Raman, if I'm correct in noticing that, we were singing your praises about your ability to get the Harvard Business Review to make a sort of correction. Kudos to you, sir.
We should do a stage clap, Tyler.
Yeah, stage.
It was awesome.
That is awesome.
Well done, man.
Yes. There you go. Woo, woo. And Yeah, working quietly from the audience, but following up on these articles that we talk about. And he noticed something fishy, brought it up to the journalist, who is now blaming the editor for the poorly worded. It's kind of a soft apology, soft correction, but no doubt due
But
to
the humility that I wanted to call out for, in addition to that, was he wanted to give Tech News the credit, but not himself.
yeah, that's
And that's
awesome.
what he sent me, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's servant leadership.
yeah.
So just wanted to give that.
Yeah, that's all him, man. He's brilliant. And the times that he has joined on stage, I've been super impressed with his insight. And that's why Cal and I both consistently try and get him to join on stage. Uh, anyway, and we hope you do. You're most welcome anytime, Raman. So, and we're glad you're part of the team here in the audience. Speaking of, the art of journalism, as I was just ranting about, there's a super interesting story that just came out today about tech versus journalism, as we've highlighted many times here. The nasty battle between Silicon Valley and the reporters who write about it. You better believe I'm going to tweet this one from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, which is at TNATW, which is a very nicely short anagram for Tech News Around the World, which you can see by clicking on the title of this room. But let's dive into this. It's all about, as the headline says, behind the online battle between notable tech figures, including Andreessen Horowitz, the lead investors of a little app you might have heard about called Clubhouse, and Balaji, who used to work at Andreessen Horowitz, and the journalists who report and tweet on the industry. Let's dive in, shall we? So late last fall, the New York Times was preparing a bombshell article about Coinbase. Yes, it was. A financial exchange that had become the latest U.S. company in the cryptocurrency industry and was just months away from a sensational, lucrative IPO. Nathaniel Popper, a writer in the newspaper's San Francisco bureau at the New York Times, had spent months reporting a story about Coinbase's alleged inhospitality to its black employees. Also true, and that was covered in the article when it was released. One former worker told the journalist, most people of color working in tech know that there's a diversity problem, but I've never experienced anything like Coinbase. With Silicon Valley increasingly a dominant force in American life and during the national reckoning over structural racism, an examination of HR practices at one of the tech industry's fastest growing businesses, notably Coinbase, documented with firsthand accounts by the journalist from the New York Times, was classic accountability journalism. Okay, second paragraph. It was the kind of story to which Wall Street, Washington, and corporate America have long been grumbling acquiescent. They might not like it, but they accept that such scrutiny inevitably shadows success. They take their dings and move on. Yeah, well stated. But Coinbase, led by CEO Brian Armstrong, who had recently, clearly, yes, a super, super long and super important article. I'll spare everybody the 20 minutes of reading it, but I highly suggest that this is homework. We have a new addition to Tech News Around the World. We now have homework, everybody. You got to read this article before we meet again 7 hours from now so we can talk about it, because it deserves a good reading. It's from the NewYorkMag.com. I just tweeted it from Tech News Around the World Twitter account. Please do read it, because this is an important issue that's developing, and it gets into the reason I'm assigning this as homework is because it touches on every article and headline we cover here at Tech News Around the World every day, because there is secretly kind of a covert Cold War between the tech publications and journalists and the tech companies. And that needs to be understood when we are analyzing these headlines often. So that's why I want people to do a little homework and read about the nuances of the back and forth and the actors involved. And Balaji is one of the key people in this. And Andreessen Horowitz is one of the key players in this. And the New York Times is one of them. And Coinbase really was one of the battlefields of this. So I can tell just from the first two paragraphs that the person who wrote this, Benjamin Wallace, definitely knows what they're talking about. Focusing on the Coinbase issue between the New York Times and Coinbase is exactly where you should start this topic, as this article does. So I'm going to read it myself and encourage you to do so. But we can't it's a very lengthy article, so we can't dive deep into it. Moving on, Facebook backed Diem, their digital currency initiative, which originally they had called Libra, changed the name to Diem. And then the other update was many of the initial founding partners of the Libra network had dropped out. They changed the branding to Diem, and they're now changing it to a stable coin with its own wallet that they're testing currently in Israel, according to our friend Michelle, who works at Facebook. And there is, as many of the people on stage who, like Mabwana and Liz and others who are in Africa, there's clearly ambitions for this to become a staple in Africa. So the headline here from CNBC today is that Facebook-backed Diem digital currency project abandons Swiss license application, will move to the U.S. And this has been brought up by Florian and others in Switzerland, that this isn't compatible with the Swiss banking system or with Geneva. So Diem, the digital currency project based by Facebook, has abandoned plans to secure a payment license from Switzerland's FINMA watchdog, which is next point. The organization will move its operations to the U.S. and has partnered with a crypto-friendly bank called Silvergate to issue dollar-backed stablecoin. Formerly known as Libra, Facebook's digital currency was met with much opposition from regulators when it was announced initially in June 2019. Great article, great read.
And it's going to be met with massive opposition unless they sort out their thought police for their moderators. Yep. I.e., the two things are in twin tracks. Like, sort that out, or you ain't going to get people who've got kind of conscience ethics picking this thing up.
Yeah, it's a very well notable read, because again, if they have very big ambitions for this, as we said, Africa has a huge need at the moment for a good currency exchange payment. There's a huge opportunity on the continent of Africa, and there's a recent unicorn out of Lagos, Nigeria. As Mabwana has highlighted multiple times, there's a real need at the moment for good fintech to enable e-commerce to really proliferate on the continent, and so Facebook understands that opportunity, and is it'll be interesting to watch the development of that. And it's a huge opportunity, and so when there's huge opportunity and huge money on the table, companies start doing really interesting things that we watch with careful consideration. And so that's why it's interesting to see this current move and headline related to Facebook's Diem cryptocurrency. Microsoft speaking of kind of blockchain issues, Microsoft is shutting down its Azure blockchain service. 6 years after its initial launch, Microsoft's Azure blockchain as a service is going to be shut down in September. Kind of concerning, but looking into the details here, Microsoft is shutting down the Azure blockchain service, which a lot of people used. Maybe not enough, obviously, or they would have kept it going. Existing deployments will be supported until September 10th, but as of May 10th this year, no new deployments or no new blockchains will be able to be created. Microsoft's initial foray into blockchain as a service began in 2015 with an offering on the Ethereum platform with Consensus. In late January 2016, Microsoft made available a preview, but I'm assuming it's all due to lack of interest and adoption, and so they are winding that down, and those people who built on that will need to find another home to host their blockchains, no doubt. But a bit concerning that they didn't get enough traction, but maybe that just means there was other players in the ecosystem who were servicing, making better offerings, products and services. So here's a headline from the Washington Post. Biden signs executive order designed to strengthen federal digital defenses. Well, gee, Wally, I wonder if this has something to do with the pipeline hack. Indeed, it certainly must. No doubt this signals the fact that the Biden administration must have been having interesting late-night deep dives into what to do about the future of America's national security. If this national pipeline can be hacked, what else can be hacked, and what do we need to take proactive defense? And so the headline from the Washington Post, Biden signs executive order today, designed to strengthen federal digital defenses. I will tweet this from the Twitter account, so you can do a deep dive yourself. But it's honestly not surprising, as on the heels of this big pipeline hack, and good for Biden to be acting so quickly on this issue. President. There's a paywall on that article, so you might want to find
Has Sonali got the insight on this, Tyler?
Yeah,
Where's
we need.
Sonali gone?
Yeah, can somebody please ping in Sonali to get the White House perspective on this? That great point, Dave. That would be very helpful indeed.
I'll leave you guys with that. I'm going to a client call, but great to be with you. See you.
As Biden's legal representative, it would be great to have Sonali's take on this. Here's an article. Biden cybersecurity order mandates new rules for government software is the headline from Reuters. President Joe Biden on Wednesday ordered the creation of an air accident-style cyber review board and the imposition of a new software standards for government agencies following a spat of digital intrusions that have rattled the U.S. And that speaks to the kind of language I was using yesterday about how are we going to solve these problems? Are governments going to need to create regulations around what companies are who's going to be held accountable when these things happen? Will there be new rules in place for software standards? And indeed, let me read the paragraph again. Biden on Wednesday ordered the creation of a